name is Fatma Antar, and I have been teaching economics, principles of economics, macro and micro, money and banking, international trade and finance, but basically macro and microeconomics.
And what year did you begin teaching at MCC?
Well, that is a difficult question to answer. Why? Because I was hired full-time in 1983, but 3 years prior to that, I was teaching part-time.
How did you find out about the college and apply for a part-time position?
Okay. I did have a friend. His name is Muhammad Zahir, and he was teaching here full-time. The way I got to know him, we were both graduate students at the University of Connecticut, economics department, and I did help him with my notes. So he when he knew that I graduated with my master's degree, and he actually went on to get his PhD from education, the education department, and there was an opportunity. So he sent me a message that you might want to apply for a part-time position. So I did, and that was the beginning.
And so what was the college like when you arrived here around 1980?
Yeah, it was very different than what it is now. Now it's very diverse in race, even how to approach students, very diverse. When I came, it was not diverse at all. It was basically Caucasian, including faculty and staff. I remember there was Sam Davis, librarian, and he was the only African American, and he was on every search committee because of diversity, to indicate that the search process was inclusive. So it was a very different place than what it is now.
So what changes did you see in the 31 years since you've been here?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you my contribution. Yeah. How's that?
Yeah, well, tell me about your contribution.
I actually felt, because I'm an international person, so I felt, something needs to change. So I started to be active in terms of international issues, and at the same time, it was beneficial for me in so many respects. One of them is you teach 4 classes, and if you want to apply for promotion, you have to do additional responsibilities. I mean, that concept was there since 1983. Maybe it's more formal now than it was then. But I had to find my way, whatever I was comfortable with and was able to do. And so I started to think about, international issues and things like that. I started to run some of the ideas by some of the people I got to know, including the person next to us, Chuck, please, I must say. So, I think people were very supportive of the idea. And it was, for me, the satisfaction I was able to contribute to make a change, because I think that made some change. Most likely the college would be diverse as it is today, but I felt at that time I made a contribution because international people felt comfortable coming to the college where it was not necessarily comfortable. And I was able to contact people with a high caliber, internationally well-known scholars and ambassadors, presidents of big corporations. When I think about these things, gosh, I did a lot. And that was a joyful thing for me.
Now, you have been involved in the Global Issues Conference.
I started it, yeah.
Tell us a little about the philosophy behind that.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I started to teach, here at the college, whenever I started to talk about the foreign sector and its contribution to gross domestic product, and it's always minus, deficit, we tend to import much more than what we export. So I started to think, why that is. And part of it was, are we reaching out to people to trade with? And the answer is, well, Europeans tend to be more aggressive about that approach rather than Americans. And it is very also important in order to work with people, to reach out to people, you have to understand them. So I thought, well, here is the social science part of economics, which is if we understand people more, then we can sell our stuff better. We can understand their culture, we can understand their politics, the way we deal with each other. So that was the beginning. And then it expanded to be beyond that. I think it later on, just a few years later, it expanded to a point where if we understand each other, we'll have a more peaceful world. It did not necessarily have everything to do with trade, but, it expanded. The concept was expanded. And I did have a wonderful committee that put things together. I did also have the support of management at that point.
Okay. You mentioned that when you began teaching here, the student body was fairly homogeneous.
Correct.
How have you seen a change in students over 3 decades?
Yeah. I think now we have large number of minorities that collectively they are not a minority anymore. And I think that is enriching. From my point of view, when I, for example, discuss current issues, students from different backgrounds can have different perspective on things. And I think that is very important for students to hear each other. And I have been doing that a lot, actually. Maybe the last 10 years, I have been focusing more and more on current issues that deal with economics. They can be, and I tell them, you can bring any articles for discussion, domestic, international, national, whatever they like. So I give them the leeway, and I always say, as long as it deals with economics and business, and sometimes they don't. So the big question, even they learn to ask each other, okay, so what is the connection with economics? So they have to make a connection. Yeah.
Can you recall any anecdotes or humorous stories that may have taken place during your time at the college?
I think I had lots of laughters, and some of it maybe I shouldn't have laughed at.
Can you give us a specific?
Maybe they were racial towards me, and I shouldn't have laughed at it.
This has been difficult being a Muslim on this campus?
Mostly good, sometimes not. I remember early on, there were remarks made and joking, and that is, from some of my colleagues, the old-timers, that, sometimes previous generations are not careful. They were just joking. I know they didn't mean any harm. And I laughed at it. It was not something that I took it personally, but when I reflect now, with the mindset now, I would say I shouldn't have laughed. But I think the change came right after 9/11, 2001. I became very sensitive, I must say, so I have to start with that. I became more sensitive. And at the same time, I lost friendships. There were a couple of people that were dear, dear, dear to my heart. And they couldn't deal with me as a Muslim. It was not me. I actually approached them several times, but so it was, but I have to remember also the positives. In 2 weeks after the event, Diana Hussein and myself here at Manchester Community College, as well as Colleen Keyes, she was the academic dean at Tunxus Community College. We are 3 Muslims that we know each other throughout the community college system. We organized a big conference, and most of the faculty, staff, and students were in attendance. And I think that shows support. The administration, I must say, also tried their best to facilitate as much as possible. So, I mean, I remember that, and I say, here are my colleagues. But there were tough times, too.
I ask a question. I don't think we established when global issues was begun. When was it? How long has it been in existence?
I ran it for 12 years, and I think there is another 12 years coming. So 24 years ago. So I would say 1987.
Which of those
global issues started.
Which of those global issues did you got a fond memory of?
Of course, the one on Egypt. Oh, that was very important to me.
You've worked with a great many individuals here. Tell us about some of the people who have been important to you.
Okay. I think, if I look at who I worked with closely the best, I would remember Terry McConnell. She's a professor, or was a professor of business. We were hired the same year, same day. She was hired because she's business at that time. If you are in a business area, they hire you as an assistant professor, and if you don't have that, then they hire you as an instructor. So I was hired as an instructor, and actually our third that was hired at the same time is Mike DeRemo. And when we meet each other, do you remember the $17,001 we got as our first salary? And maybe that was a joke. Here you go. You're asking for a funny thing. I mean, that is a funny thing. But Terry, I worked with her closely. We just spoke now. Before coming, I was talking with her. So we are still friends. Louine Corwin, as my academic dean at that time, she had that international vision and was very supportive, at least as I recall. And quite often, I remember I would go to Chuck, please, to run things by him, and, what do you think about that? And he will encourage me, or vice versa. So, those are, and now I have my close buddies, Jean Nguyen and Joan Paterna. Yeah, so those are really the people I am close to.
If you could go back and change one thing that you did here, or didn't do here, what would it be?
I think is to make a difference in terms of talking more about the religion of Islam. I always say that, but it is not only within MCC. I think if people knew what Islam is all about, and then September 11 happened, they would have enough knowledge to protect themselves from the misinformation. Or the misinformation might not have happened. But I didn't do a lot on that. I mean, it was only the conference that I did on Islam. And it is not, I want people to say, hooray, Islam, it's a beautiful religion or anything, but providing information. And I think that was. And the other thing is not to laugh about racial jokes, as I indicated before.
Are there any students who really stand out over the last 3 decades?
That is a tough question. Yes, there are, but don't ask me names. Oh, definitely. I mean, I have students that went and got master's degree in economics and got PhDs in economics, and they will come or send me an email and say, we have done that, this and that. So, I would like to think I did contribute something. Yeah.
If you were talking to someone who had just gotten hired to begin his or her teaching career at MCC this fall, what words of advice would you give that individual? At the beginning, you need to slow down and look around you first and see who you can connect with and work with. It is very important to have other people you are comfortable with, not to go by yourself. There are many opportunities. Actually, if I look at the last couple of years in terms of the atmosphere of the college, I would describe it with a mixed review. One of them, the administration as faculty, I'm talking as a faculty, the president, the academic dean. Those are wonderful people, very supportive. They are not, we are going to get you type of attitude, where sometimes in the past that happened. The other thing is to be cooperative but critical. Don't just follow. Be a leader. Because sometimes, if, let's say, your boss wants you to do something, examine it. Is it possible? Is it good for the students? Is it good for the college? And maybe through talking with your boss, you can reach a better conclusion than, let's say, I was just hired, I better do what they tell me to do. This type of thing. And I learned that. I did not say much at the beginning. I wanted to be a leader in my own way by bringing those international issues on campus, but otherwise I was not. So I learned to be critical and to speak up when it is necessary. Are there any other thoughts or comments that you want to make?
Thank you so much. I might retire. I'm not sure. Any help you can give me?
Yes, Ken. You've done it.
I mean, you are a senior only by longevity, not by age.
It's both.
You're a senior faculty member, and it just occurred to me, this is with Bob as well. How does it feel? I mean, when you think about the fact that 26 years ago, 30 years ago, 31 years ago, when you came here, you were at the bottom of the ladder, and all of these mature,
right.
You're in a reverse role now.
Right.
Any thoughts about that?
Actually, it's good. It's good because, I feel, I have morals. Mm-hmm. So I would not say, well, I'll do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. I still respect my boss, communicate with my boss. But I am at a stage where I don't have to compromise if I'm not agreeable.
Did people see you as wisdom and at meetings?
Some did and some didn't. Exactly as I looked at my seniors. I looked at them as sometimes talking too much, you're giving me a headache. and sometimes, words of wisdom. But, reflecting back, I think most of their talk was words of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it I didn't see it then.
Yeah.
So the same thing now. Some people are not seeing it now. That what I am saying. And I'm not right all the time either.